It's a great honor and a privilege to introduce Miriam. We're here in the Venice ghetto in Italy.
Yes, and it is a great privilege to have met Les, who has welcomed us and shown us around the ghetto of Venice. My Hebrew name, Miriam Tikva. My birth name, my last name is Galernter. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States. My mother, Fanny Fanichka, was born in Lithuania, and my father, Simon Galernter, was born in Lodz, Poland. My father, who is now deceased, spent his entire time after being liberated hoping beyond hope to find someone who he was related to, as he had several siblings. My mother has one sister who was older than her, and she has now passed away. She lived in Tashkent. My mother is one of the, I believe, few children who managed to come out of the concentration camp with her mother. My grandmother, Zina Shaknovsky, when they moved to the United States, had shortened the name to Shak, Schak. My grandfather was Leon Shak, and they lived in Squirrel Hill, the Jewish section of Pittsburgh. Thank you.
And can I ask, which concentration camp was?
That's what I have to. My father was on a train to Auschwitz, and my mother was in Stutthof.
And you, and they survived.
Yes.
And did your parents, did they find any of their
My
extended family?
My parents actually did not meet until living in Pittsburgh in the United States. As I said, my mother's sister was significantly older than her, so at the time of the war, she went to Tashkent, and my mother was still a young child. My mother was born in 1932, and so that's how she was with her mother. My father was born in 1926 in Lodz and was separated from family. His mother had a heart attack. I'm going to start to cry. With Kristallnacht.
Wow.
So she did not go to the concentration camp. It killed her. And his father and brothers, when they were taken, were separated immediately, and he never saw anyone again.
And your father, he spent the time in Auschwitz?
Yes.
And he's one of the few survivors.
I'm so sorry. I think this is one of the things that I will say as a child of Holocaust survivors, that there is a secondary trauma that occurs being a child of Holocaust survivors. My parents handled being in the Holocaust completely differently from each other. My mother could not talk about it at all, and my father wanted to read as much as he could and to watch movies about the war in an effort to understand why and how this could all happen.
And did your parents relate to you what the experiences, the horrific?
Not so much. I mean, my father died in 1997, and in the last few years of his life, he would talk more and in fact began to do some speaking at schools. My mother could not do that at all until after my father died. She sought to do this a few times as a way to carry on his legacy.
And did your parents ever relate their stories on a video, or did they write it down?
Yes, they did participate in a video project before my father died in '97.
Sure, so it's Mina Shemaim that we met.
Yes.
And you're right, there's a terrible trauma for second generation.
Yes.
And you would relate this, what happened to your parents, to your children and grandchildren?
You know, it's interesting. My children did not want to hear about it so much when they were younger. And my one daughter is now talking about the trauma that she experiences as a result of this being part of her family history. And it's really only in the last, I will say year or two that the increase in anti-Semitism has been very upsetting to her. I don't know if you are aware, in Pittsburgh, the
Sure,
Tree of Life
of course, sure.
synagogue, this was, it shook us all up because now this was no longer far away.
It brought it very home.
It
Yeah.
brought it very, very close to home. And that made a very big impression on my children when they saw how this could happen so close to home.
Well, please God, let's hope for a Shana Tova, a good year. And,
Yes. Yes.
And thank you so much for
Shana
relating.
Tova to you too.
And I really appreciate you giving the time and relating
Thank
your
you for
experiences.
bringing us here. Thank you.
It's a
Thank
great
you.
pleasure.